Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is Vimari Roman, and she is the founder of Be Productive Coaching. Welcome.
Thank you, Gary. It's great to be here.
So with Be Productive Coaching, you do a lot of career coaching and career strategy and things like that. Can you talk to us about that?
Absolutely. So we help professionals, mid to senior level professionals, transition to the next step of their careers with purpose. And we do that through the career strategies, the professional branding, personal branding, some people call it, and then coaching, of course, leadership coaching, and mental fitness, which is positive intelligence.
Great. So I guess, where do you get your clients from?
My clients, I would have to say at the very beginning, they were my colleagues and, my network. It was from my network. And then I started to get really involved with LinkedIn and really network on LinkedIn. LinkedIn eventually reached out to me in 2019 and asked to recognize me as a career expert, a LinkedIn career expert. I became a contractor for them, reviewing resumes and LinkedIn profiles for some of the premium users. And so basically from then, that was in 2019. Since then, I would say most of my clients come from either LinkedIn or from referrals.
Okay. Now, in going through this, you have been certified as a positive intelligence coach. What does that mean?
What does that mean? Yes. So I'll bring you back to actually the pandemic, right? 2020. So when everyone was at home, really just trying to process what was happening, I became busier than ever as a career strategist and a coach. I had just rebranded my company and I had a brand new website that I launched in April. So it was great timing because everyone was home. They got to see my website and I got really, really busy because there were so many people that got laid off or furloughed during the pandemic. That's the cost of a pandemic. And so at the end of the year, during that year, I was just raising my hand to help as many people as I could. And in the middle of the year, I found out that MPI, which is Meeting Professionals International, was moving their annual conference from July over to November of that year. Now, they are pretty much the leaders in meetings and events, which is why they wanted to move the conference to keep it in November in the middle of the pandemic. Okay. And so I raised my hand because I used to serve on one of the chapter boards for many years. And I raised my hand. I contacted the person that was in charge of the human resources for the organization and asked her if I could come and coach at that conference in November. And so they welcomed me, and my husband and I, we weren't sure if it was safe to drive yet. So we decided to take a road trip from Miami to Texas to go for this conference. So I went to the conference, I coached at the conference. It was, no one reported any incidents. They handled everything so beautifully. And the week after the conference, it was my husband's 50th birthday. And I had scheduled to take vacation so that I could spend it with him. He's originally from Houston, Texas. So we decided to drive to his hometown so that we could spend it with family and friends. And I was planning on staying in Texas for the rest of the month because then it was Thanksgiving. So we're like, well, let's just extend it and let's be here. But I had planned to work remotely right after his birthday. His birthday's on the 9th. So that following week after that, I planned on working remote. So as I'm getting ready to work, to get my week started that Monday, and it's hard for me to explain how I felt, but all I can say is that I couldn't think. I couldn't strategize. I didn't have one brain cell left in my brain. It was like I took that vacation and I couldn't come back.
Right.
And as a coach, I knew that what was happening, what I was experiencing were symptoms of burnout. And here I am, as a coach, I've been coaching since 2014, experiencing this burnout because I raised my hand to serve so many people during the pandemic, and everyone had the opportunity to process those emotions. I didn't. Right. So my achiever went into full force, and that's all I was doing. And so at that point, that's when a friend of mine, and I'm kind of giving you a long story because it'll make sense.
That's okay.
A friend of mine reached out to me. She's also a coach, and I knew her from, I spent 22 years in the hospitality and meetings industry, and she spent quite a bit of time there too. And she had reached out to me during that same time in November to introduce to me, actually offer for me to go through a program that she had just gone through as a grant. And what happened was that Positive Intelligence, which was founded by Shirzad Chamine, he's a Stanford professor. He wrote the book Positive Intelligence many, many years ago. Mm-hmm. And he had already planned to launch a program. However, in the middle of the pandemic, he realized, whoa, this needs to go out to the public now, because now more than ever is this work going to be needed. So he offered a grant to coaches so that we can go through the program for free. And if we were interested in continuing to learn about it, we could actually become certified. So Rochelle was interested. She went to the program. She wanted to get certified. She invited me. And of course, I am in the middle of a burnout. So I said yes. And I started the program in January. And this was January 21. And then within the second week, Gary, I knew that I needed to get certified in this work. It was so life-changing in just 2 weeks for me personally, mm-hmm. that I said, whoa, if I were to add this as a toolbox, my toolbox, this could change my practice. And it really has. So I went through the 6-7 week program with her, the boot camp, and then immediately followed to get certified. So in 2021, we were both certified as Positive Intelligence coaches. And since then, she and I have been partnering on bringing back humanity into the workplace. So that's my long story.
No, that's great to understand that. I mean, because, being a CPA, we go through our crazy busy times, and lots of times, like you say, I mean, we do definitely deal with that burnout. And sometimes we don't have enough downtime in between to really be able to get back to be productive. Is what I think a lot of doing what you're doing is helping people do. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us some of the strategies and things that you use when you're helping people?
Absolutely. So, many times people are coming to me because there's usually two reasons. One is that they're looking to either continue growing and maybe go into the C-suite, or they're looking to transition. They're professionals that are great at what they do, but they're no longer fulfilled. And they're looking to transition to the next step, and they need help. Now, what happens there is that for years, I was working on trying to uncover their limiting beliefs and what was holding them back, because that's really what happens when we're trying to make a transition. Mm-hmm. Fear kicks in, self-doubt kicks in, imposter syndrome, all these, saboteurs kick in for us. And so I spent a lot of time working with my clients on that. Now, with Positive Intelligence, that's helped me tremendously, because I have a quick assessment that will give them what their top saboteurs are. I know exactly how to guide them through it. And I invite them to take the 7-week boot camp. so that they could better understand their saboteurs. And what I've seen is that it's really accelerated the progress of my clients in terms of their career transitions and continuing to move forward.
That's interesting. So it's almost like, because of the positive intelligence training that you have, it's kind of your way of making sure that you break down those walls to help them be able to see a little bit more clear and what they want to do and what's stopping them from doing it.
Absolutely. Yes. And it helps in all areas of life. We don't realize how harmful these saboteurs are, and how, many times they're there and we're basically running on survival, right? Mm-hmm. And this is where the fear again comes in, all that limiting beliefs, and it doesn't allow us to move forward. Eventually we do, because, as humans, some of us are very resilient.
Right.
But it takes a long time because we're so busy listening to these voices versus just taking action. And so that's why I'm so passionate about this work, because it truly is. It's been life-changing for me and for everyone that I've put through the program.
Right. So, you talk about the sabotaging and stuff like that, and a lot of it is self-inflicted. Mm-hmm. And I think that's not just in people's careers, but just in life in general. Sometimes we listen to that voice inside, but we also listen to it because there's other people that are surrounding us that have found that I guess they get more out of it by putting people down. So doing this, you're helping people learn to block that out.
They're not only learning to block that out, but, I think a big part of positive intelligence is that it correlates with the 18 dimensions of emotional intelligence. What does that mean? It means that if a person practices mental fitness and does the practices daily, they're able to rewire their brains, going from the survival over to the thriving. Now, it's not going to go away completely, but it will help. So what happens is, not only are we able to quiet our saboteurs, but our empathy circuitry is tapped into, so that we are actually, when we're communicating or dealing with clients or anyone, employees, or even at home, we recognize that as humans, we all have these characters. And so we start to become more empathetic. So when let's say we're in the middle of a, disagreement, I now am looking at you, Gary, differently, because I empathize that you might be self-sabotaging. Your saboteurs might be, completely triggered. And so you're responding to me based on that, not based on your sage.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So in going through this, you're not just dealing with people that are necessarily looking for career change. You can also work with business owners that for some reason can't get past that. I'm going to say can't mentally get past that $1 million mark or 2 million, whatever the number is, or bringing on the employees and why and things like that. You can help them, with different strategies to help them get around that process.
Absolutely. As a certified leadership coach, I am trained to work with leaders, and that's why most of my clients are mid to senior leaders. And so, no, it's not only about transitioning into the next step of their careers. It's also about becoming a better leader. And so what I say a lot is, for those of us that have our own businesses, there's got to be a niche, right? Mm-hmm. And so for marketing purposes, it's just easier to market if you're marketing to one niche.
Right.
So my niche for marketing is the career strategies and the coaching. However, yes, I end up working with these leaders because coaching them for months at a time, because they're looking to increase their positive intelligence or emotional intelligence and just be better leaders. Yes, absolutely. Especially after the pandemic, humans were just people, I think, realize that life is short and that, we're only here for a short time. So we might as well try to find some balance and try to integrate our lives with our work. And nowadays, over the last year and a half, I think I've spoken at like 6 or 7 conferences that all have had a focus on mental well-being, work-life integration, all of that, because that's really what we are all seeking.
Right.
And so it's a really important time. And yes, I love working with leaders and just seeing the transformation that they can have.
Yeah. I think that a lot of our listeners are business owners. And I think that lots of times as a business owner, we were very good at whatever our skill is that we have. We're very good at that. So we decide to start our business. But so many people are afraid to take that next step, because at that point we are dealing with employees. We are dealing with, in lots of ways, a lot more, I don't want to necessarily say headaches, but a lot more issues than we were before. How can your program help them overcome those fears of the employees and having to manage them along with managing themselves and, kind of trying to do everything themselves?
Yeah. So, in that case, what I recommend always is to start with the 7-week Positive Intelligence Fundamentals Bootcamp. And what that does is that it really creates, it's not just you going into a classroom and learning about this. This is an app-based program. So you have a mobile app that you're working in. So it's got a gamification component. And you're actually practicing this over the 6 weeks time. Mm-hmm. And then what you're learning there is you're learning what we call them PQ, mental fitness reps. So like a physical fitness rep.
Okay.
So we do these reps. We teach the leaders how to, throughout the program, how to do them. You do them throughout your day. So you're not waiting until you're in that situation to do them, but you're actually doing them before you get into the situation, so that you're clear-headed and you're a little bit more focused. It just, it really stops you from, for instance, I do them anytime I'm going to speak, because it'll remove that fear that I might have that just comes naturally. And so after the boot camp, then through coaching, we work together on what are the challenges and what are some of the fears. And then we tap into what we have 5 sage powers. So these are our powers that are going to combat this inner critic and, all this noise that's happening in our heads. Shirzad, the founder of this work, says that his students at Stanford, they call this work Jedi mind training. So if you're a Star Wars fan, that might resonate. They realize that there's a war going on in our minds between our inner Jedi and our, the Darth Vader. And so, what happens is that, because of copyrights, he couldn't name them that. So we called these inner critics the saboteurs. Okay. And then there's 9 of them, but there's usually about 3 that are most active for us. And then we call those powers that combat them the sage. So our inner Jedi is the sage. And there's powers that we utilize like for innovation. In order for these leaders to take what we call is your surfing and taking, action, right? Without all that chatter. And so we tap into those powers through the coaching. I help through the coaching with them weekly, and really until it becomes automatic, because it's because you have the boot camp first and you're doing the practice, you're learning about it, and then through coaching, I'm helping you really bring it into the day-to-day, so that for business owners that are looking to, I'm one of those business owners, right? Right. I'm one that for years I wanted to have a full-timer, and I just, I had this limiting fear that I couldn't afford it, right? And finally, I pulled the plug a year ago, and I cannot be happier.
Right.
You know, I'm like, why didn't I do this sooner?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So, and it's helped me be able to, and of course, I encouraged my assistant to go through the program. She understands it. So that way she knows when her saboteurs are coming up for her, and we work together through them. So it really is not only about the business owner and the leader, but it's also about what we encourage is bringing this into the culture. We just had a group from Shell in Europe that took their leaders through the program, and now they loved it so much that now they're looking to start 8 to 10 of their top sales people in the program, because one of the things that they really want to focus on is resilience, and that quieting that chatter for sales. So it really, we recommend that it's brought into the culture because the science, it's proven that it increases not only one's well-being, but it also increases performance, and collaboration within teams.
Yeah, so it's really helping them reinforce those positive mental habits and constantly, doing this. I guess, what are people that either go through this program or haven't quite got it yet? What are some of the common mistakes that you see that they're making with it?
In
trying to go through the program, or once they're done with the program, what is it that you see that if somebody's going to not do so well, because I don't want to say the failed word, if they don't do so well with it, what is it that makes them, that I'm going to say, that still holds them back or doesn't let them succeed?
It's having that strong inner critic and not being open. And part of it is that these things, we call them saboteurs, right? But a lot of people resonate with the inner critic because that's what we have, right?
Right.
So that these inner critics were basically, they were born when we were children as protection, and as adults we're carrying them over, right? And it's also how our brain is wired to go into the survival, right? So as cavemen, we had to hunt for food. We were always looking to how to survive. So between that and us carrying these as children throughout our lives, it's a comfort zone. And a lot of the times, our strengths, believe it or not, are these saboteurs.
Right.
So that could help, someone who's not open to personal development may say, well, hey, I'm very successful, and this is how I've been successful. I'm a business owner, and I wouldn't have this business and have grown it if I wasn't, if I couldn't, right? So how are you telling me that being a hyperachiever, or not being a hyperachiever, but having the hyperachiever as my saboteur is a bad thing, right? And so what I say there is, to what cost? Right? So my top 3 are the hyperachiever, the controller, and the restless. That's a bomb.
Yeah.
Like stress. So I lived my life. I started my career at a very young age, and I was always the last one out of the office. It was all about, sacrificing my family time, my fun time, because of my work.
Right.
And that resulted in, yes, it resulted in me always, when I was in sales, I was a top performer. When I was, in operations, my teams were the best, so I always did well, but at what cost? I suffered in my 20s. I suffered from migraines. In my 30s, I had palpitations that took me to the hospital, and all of these, symptoms, doctors only attributed it to stress. Right. And it was self-induced because no one told me to stay in the office that late. Right. And so my hyperachiever even though it's gotten me, a lot of small wins, in the long run, it cost me a divorce. It cost me a whole lot, right?
Yeah.
So now in my wife's 47, and with the positive intelligence, you know, I'm still an achiever.
Right.
What happens is that I'm not as stressed, right? I am able to recognize when I'm overdoing it and I need to pause, right? So, back to your original question is, how does one fail or whatever? You can't fail when you already have the insights and this is foundation. That's why we call it the foundational program. That foundation is always going to be there. So what I do see is that if they're not as open to personal development and don't want to get vulnerable with what caused this child to
Right.
put these protections up, right? And how is it that that's coming up in my life now? Then perhaps the life-changing opportunity is not going to be as fast. You're always going to have, I haven't had one person say, I had a leader say that, I was a little uncomfortable with the whole vulnerability thing. Why do we need to get vulnerable?
Right. Right.
And it's not, it's not therapy. It's not any of that. However, it is what it is. It's the truth, right? And if you're able to overcome that and have an open mind, then the work is life-changing. And then the other area is that, if you don't follow up with your coaching, and we also have a membership, we call it the Grow program on the app, that you can continue to do the daily exercises on the app. We find that those that do not continue, then, they call a few months later down the line and say, hey, how can I get back on that app?
Right. Right.
So
it sounds like a lot of this is, I'm going to say, is helping people work smarter and
absolutely.
not so much harder all the time. Because I know, again, as a business owner, we're constantly feeling like we're the ones that have to be the first ones in, the last ones out. We got to do the most, so forth and so on. And reality is, if we could get out of our own way, lots of times, things would work. Things would work much better if we get it the hell out of our own way. So it sounds like that this program really does help people kind of get out of their own way in a sense.
It absolutely does. And it's science-based. We've got 4 areas of science. We've got positive psychology, cognitive behavioral psychology, performance science, and I don't know why I'm forgetting the 4th one, but anyhow, it's all and neuroscience. Why didn't so neuroscience. So and what this does is that with building the habits, it helps teams and individuals provide the insights into our brain patterns so that we can actually rewire our brains, so we can get out of our way. Because that's really what it is. Most, if we think about the Tony Robbins of the world, all these, whatever you want to call them, that's what they worked on, right? That's why they're where they're at, because they have been working on mindset. I've gone through a few of Tony's programs, and most of his stuff is mindset. They just invited me to do something, and I said, well, I've got the mindset. Could I get some tactical?
Right. Right.
So we get in our own way, and that's really where this is it's magical. It really is.
Right. We've talked about a lot of stuff. I'm sure we could go on here for a couple hours talking about this, because it's definitely, very interesting as a business owner in how we do stop ourselves from being able to succeed in lots of different ways. What have I not asked you that you wish I had?
I knew that would probably be coming. And I've enjoyed our conversation. I think you've covered pretty much, I've covered, for me, all about, I named my company Be Productive Coaching. And it's because for me, it's always been, as an achiever, about how to be more productive.
Right.
And productive is not about stressing, right? It's not about the hustle, right? Mentality. And we can hustle, because I still hustle, but it can be in a healthy way, and it's really about finding that life integration. So I guess I'll end it with that, so that you didn't ask. Everyone nowadays is talking about work-life balance, and you hear it on the news, you see it on everywhere. I tell people constantly, and then they look at me like, I'm like, there's no such thing. It doesn't exist. Get it out of your mind, because you're never going to achieve it, right? So what we need to work towards is life integration. Our life is like if you put your life in a big circle, we've got work, we've got family, we've got friends, hobbies. There's all of this that it makes one person. And we need to integrate our life. And I tell you something, Gary, once I started integrating my life versus searching that work-life balance, which it doesn't exist, my life has become a lot more fun and joyful and easier, because I can just, in the middle of the day, decide I'm going to go and, of course, I have the freedom as a business owner. Right. But, I think anyone can do this, because I did it when I was still a director of sales and marketing for a big hotel company. I would take, after lunch, I would eat my lunch and I would go around the block and walk. Something as simple as that is integration.
Right. So if people like what they hear, how can they reach out to you? How can they get in touch and talk to you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn. I'm not there 24/7, but I would say that's the best way. Okay. I answer all of my messages. So it's Vimari Roman. And then I also have my website. You can go to my website. I offer free consultations. And my website is beproductivecoaching.com.
Great. I really appreciate your time today and your wisdom, and our little mental exercise we did right before we started. That was awesome.
What do you want to share with your audience?
No, you share. It was your exercise.
So we did, Gary and I did some mental fitness gym reps right before, because there was a little technology problem, and we wanted to make sure that we were both in flow. And the result of that is this conversation. Exactly.
It was great meeting you and great sitting down with you and talking, and I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Gary. Thank you for having me.
Sure. This week, our guest was Vimari Roman, who is the founder of Be Productive Coaching. I will see you guys next week.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.